my actual contact information. Please feel free to contact me anytime for any reason. So I really do like helping people any way I can. I'm really good at mentoring people with starting small companies or starting hackerspaces or communities or manufacturing or if you're ever depressed. Yeah, feel free to contact me. And let's see, this is, oh, it does. Okay, good. So I don't like really talking about conventional wisdom. I think it's important to learn from others' past experiences, but if you're going to live a life that you feel is way worthwhile, you've really got to do things that you know and feel are right, even if it goes against what others feel is right. And that's not always easy, but it's really important. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you definitely need to do this. So lately, I travel around the world giving talks and talking with bureaucrats, administrators, especially in China lately. And everywhere around the world, including the US, they want to copy Silicon Valley. And we can't do that. You know, Silicon Valley wasn't created, it happened. And it happened because there were a whole bunch of weirdos in this part of the world who thought of things in their own way, and these particular weirdos were introverted geeks, and they were passionate about computers. And the technology was getting to the point where it was inexpensive enough that they thought they could have computers in their own home rather than in a huge, gigantic building just for the military. So other people thought they were just weird introverted geeks, but they were passionate about this. They couldn't do it on their own, so they got together in a community and they started the Homebrew Computer Club. And collectively, they figured out a whole bunch of ways to make small personal computers. And it worked. And then the rest of society seemed to start taking notice and thought it was cool. And that's when they saw an opportunity and they started a bunch of small companies, many of which were sustainable for quite a long time, a few of which grew big, one of which is now one of the biggest corporations on the planet. So that cannot be copied. But the pattern of that can be copied. Coming together in community with people who are passionate about what they do, thinking of things in their own way, and then coming up with cool ideas. If other people think it's cool, then seeing an opportunity, and then if they want to, starting a small company that might have some possibility of success. So that's an important thing that I'm going to stress through my talk, but my talk's really about hackerspaces. But it's also about work and money. I think it's really important that we find work that we really love. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we need money to eat, and we need money for shelter. It's totally absurd, but we do need that, so we've got to find ways of making money so we can eat and live and do a few other things as well. And we spend a third of our day, which means a third of our life, at work. That's a long time. It better be something you really, really like, and not just something that's kind of cool, or even more sad, something that you don't even like or even hate, like most people in the world seem to say on surveys. The thing is, we also sleep, hopefully, a third of the day, which means a third of our life. And we're going to dream about what we did during the day. And if you have a job you don't like, that means you're dreaming about that. That means 2/3 of your life spent with stuff you don't like. And if you're like the average American who watches 6.5 hours of screen time every day, you don't have time to explore, let alone do what you really like or love in your life. But I turn TVs off for a living, and I love my job. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I didn't start off loving my life. I had to learn to do that. I started off being totally depressed as a kid, and I wanted to talk about stuff that's actually quite personal here because it's really relevant for what I'm going to talk about. I was targeted by bullies for being an introverted geek, and for being gay, for being bad at sports, for being fat, and intellectual and weird in all these ways, and whatever bullies beat up other kids. And I really was beaten up pretty much every day in school, quite often as teachers watched. And my parents were clueless, and life as a kid was total hell. escape my pain by going home and watching TV. It seemed to go away when the show was on, but of course, the show ended. But then there was another show, and the pain seemed to go away, but then there was another show, and it ended. And then there was another show, but it ended. But there's another show, and time just goes away every day, and I wasn't doing anything useful. I wasn't doing anything to even try to get along with other kids or explore what it is might be that I actually like in my life, or doing anything that's healthy. I was just eating junk food and getting fatter, only to become more of a target when I got back to school, only to retreat into TV again when I got home. And that's called addiction. And time really went away. And it took a long time, many, many years, really half of my life, just staying depressed because of this. And eventually, though, I did learn to live a life that I love, and that's a long story, and I don't have time to get into that today, but I'm totally happy to share that with anyone if you just ask me any time. But the first step of that was quitting my first addiction, which is TV, and getting rid of it from my apartment, giving me time to explore, and eventually learning to live a life I love. I started doing all sorts of geeky things and got really good at it, and eventually got good enough that I found out that companies would pay me to do this geeky stuff to help them. And so I started doing these geeky things, getting paid well, and I was working on all sorts of interesting projects, as Piero said, helping develop virtual reality, and many other things. And I don't have time to talk about all that so much now, but I really was never working on projects that excited me. They were okay. I was working with people I liked, I got paid well, but they weren't projects that made me jump out of bed in the morning excited to face the problems that I needed to solve to make those projects awesome. It wasn't that. So I wanted that. I wanted to see what my life would be like if everything I did was stuff that I loved. Is that even possible? Of course I have to do laundry and stuff like that. I really wanted to make sure that any choice I had would be the best choice I could make about what I loved, and even the work that came along. And that was actually way scary, because if I kept turning down jobs simply because I don't love it, would anyone hire me ever again? No job did come along that I loved. But I had plenty of time, and I had plenty of time to do volunteer work that I knew I loved. I also had time to, work and play on projects that I'd only been thinking about, because when I worked in electronics, I never really felt like I wanted to come home and play on them. And one project, which I've been thinking about for 10 whole years, this is in 2003, so I've been thinking about it since '93, was TV Be Gone. I got rid of TV from my apartment, but when they started popping up everywhere in public places, and even in '93 they started popping up, and it's way worse now, but by 2003 they were fucking everywhere. And I couldn't do anything about it. But I'm a geek, so I did know that I knew a way to turn them all off. So I started this project to do that, and I thought it would be really simple. You just have a little microcontroller, a computer chip, which blinks an infrared LED and invisible light. That's how remote controls work. You just blink them in a certain order, on and off and on and off, and then it's an off code for Sony, the most popular TV. And then on and off and on and off, and it's the off code for Panasonic, the second most popular TV. And then the third most popular, Philips, et cetera, until you do all of them, and the TVs are off, problem solved. I thought it would take maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, but it took me a year, but I was obsessed with it. I overcame all the obstacles because I loved this project. I was obsessed with it. It was going to be something which gave me control over this medium that had control over me all my life. And my friends were excited about it. They were saying, when's it going to be done, when it's going to be done? And it's finally done, and I'm going all over San Francisco where I live here, turning TVs off and enjoying the hell out of it. And my friends, of course, loved it too, because they're my friends. And I made them all one, and they were going around San Francisco turning TVs off and enjoying it. And their friends noticed, and they wanted one. I couldn't make one for everyone, but they were talking about even to their friends. And many of those people wanted it, and that's when I found an opportunity. And I took a gamble, and I used all the money I had left to buy as many TV Be Gones as I could afford. And I picked a manufacturer in China that treated their people well and paid them well, and I could make 20,000 of them. That was a big gamble, but I did the math. If I could sell 5,000 of them, I'd break even, and any more of those 15,000 I'd sell would be profit. I didn't know, maybe 5 years I could sell 5,000. Somehow I knew I could do that and would be fine. And then there'd be 5,000 people around the world turning TVs off. I thought that'd be really cool. But I was wrong. Did not sell 5,000 in 5 years. I sold all 20,000 in 3 weeks. And I was contacted that first day of sales by basically every media outlet in the world. BBC, Radio France, Deutsche Welle, of course CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, Fox News, People Magazine, New York Times. I was in all these things within a few weeks. It was totally crazy. And that was 12 years ago. And since then, me and 12 friends have made a living with this project that we all love. It's been a sustainable small company for 12 years and still ongoing. And we sold half a million of these things. You know, not as many as these phones or whatever we have in our pockets, but it's a sustainable company that's lasted 12 years for 12 people. And that brings me to my definition of success. If you can find a way to do what you love, and in doing what you love, get what you need to continue doing what you love, what more do you need? You've made it. If you spend any amount of time making more money beyond that, you are wasting your time. So just something to consider. And I'm not into conventional stuff, so I'm not saying that I'm right about anything. I want you to just hopefully consider stuff that I say. It's just my opinions, of course. But anyways, doing TV Be Gone got me invited to my first hacker conference, and I've been helping with hacker conferences ever since. And hacker conferences totally changed my life for the positive as well as TV Be Gone, because it's a community with thousands of people in one building doing stuff they love, as opposed to, unfortunately and sadly, not the world that we live in, where it seems like a teeny minority are doing what they love. So it's really high being surrounded by a whole building full of people doing what they love and enthusiastically sharing all of this stuff and talking about it in talks and workshops. It's really great. And then the conference ends. And then I had to wait till the next one to get that kind of high, which is the best kind of high. But my third hacker conference was this one, which was outdoors, a hacker camp. And stuff like this is almost normal now, especially if you go to China. There's lights and lasers all over the place. But back in 2007 when this was happening, this was mind-blowing. So there's not only all the people loving what they do and all sorts of music and food and spaceships and workshops and talks. There was a talk about how to start your own hackerspace. And that really inspired me, because then I thought I wouldn't have to wait all the time for the next hacker conference. I could have this kind of thing at home in my hometown every day, all night, all year round. And so me and some other friends from elsewhere in the US all were inspired by this. We were talking about this, and we went home and we did start Hackerspaces, the first ones in the US. And I started Noisebridge, which is here in San Francisco. This is the actual address. Please feel free to come and visit. It's always free. We've got lots and lots of cool stuff happening all the time. I'm going to talk about more of that. I started teaching soldering, which is something I love. It's really simple and it's fun, and anyone can learn. I teach electronics. Other people are teaching all sorts of diverse things, not just about high tech. But it got me to travel around to other hackerspaces, because we're all helping each other in doing this. And more hackerspaces, once we were successful in started popping up. Within a year there were 100, within 2 years there were 500, within 3 years there were 1,000, and it's been growing exponentially since. So I go and give a talk at a conference at Brussels, and I visit hackerspace and do workshops, and we share notes and see what we can do to make our spaces, our communities better. The workshops grew from small like this to pretty big rather rapidly. I've been going to China every year. I bring a group of people with me, and I give talks wherever I go, and we give talks with the group, and we encourage people to explore and do things that people, wherever we go, like. And in China, we're talking about hackerspaces and all this stuff, and pretty soon other people are doing it, and it builds its way up the bureaucracy and the government, and pretty soon the head of government, this guy, Premier Li, visits a hackerspace with all of Chinese media following him, and he says, this hackerspaces are the future of China for education and economy. And then all the bureaucrats of China had to start opening hackerspaces, and I'll talk about that in a bit too. But hackerspaces are why, at least I'm here today, and maybe why you're here listening to me. Hackerspaces are amazing physical places with community, and it's really about a community. We need community in our lives, and we don't have much of it. We need it in order to feel like we're thriving in our lives, and we don't have much of it. This is a great excuse, hackerspaces, for community. Also, being here is a great excuse for some community. You could just be listening to me on a computer screen. It's not the same. When people living, breathing come together, magic is possible. And when it's happening with people you know and get to know more, it's even better. Hackerspaces really are about community. They come together for anything. There's going to be a lot of pictures of people soldering here because I teach soldering. But look, they're only learning to solder, but they're happy. Look how happy they are. It's a simple skill, it's fun, it's useful, but it's just one thing is an excuse to get together. Of course, when people come together, they want to make things and do things. That's what we've been doing since we've been on the planet. But now we've got a whole bunch more technology, like this space that does things with mechanics in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Mech Lab. But it's really about community. But this is a hackerspace, so it's about hacking. Hacking is the original word back in 2007. That's the word we used, hacker, hackerspace. Now people, there's negative definitions of hacking, so they call it maker, makerspace. Same thing, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter, as long as there's community for people to come together and do cool shit. So hacking, in my definition, there's lots of them, is this. You see the world as full of resources. Full of resources. We can use these resources any way we want. It doesn't have to be the way that the resources were put there to be used by the people who put them there. We can use them any way we want. We can use them to make our projects awesome, more and more awesome. Whatever the project is, it can be anything. And I'll show that in a sec. And then we share, we see what works, what doesn't, and we share that with other people. That's what hacking is. And we do that overall, mostly because it's incredibly enjoyable to do so. That's what hacking is all about. Hacking really is a way of looking at things. It's a way of doing, being. 2 minutes? Wow, I'm out of time. So it's also the way to be an entrepreneur. You have to be a good hacker to be a good entrepreneur. You don't have to be an entrepreneur if you're a hacker, and you don't have to be a hacker if you're an entrepreneur, but you do need to be a hacker if you're going to be a good entrepreneur. So anything can be hacked, of course electronics, but art and craft and science and, come on, there we go, ourselves, our community, and everything should be hacked. We need to hack our planet, especially with leaders being chosen the way they are lately. So, and from this we see opportunities. There's all sorts of tools we can use. I'll whip through slides here. This isn't working, so I'll go over here. And you can see Noisebridge, we've got classes and workshops of all sorts. What's going on? It's going backwards. Okay, so it's of all ages, it's for inspiration and innovation. People come up with unique things. Once you have a unique thing, other people might like it, and then you have an opportunity. Oh, wow, this computer's doing crazy shit. It's good for you and the people around you, and that's why it's good for local economy, because you come up with things that are perfect for you and the people around you, and then you have an opportunity to have something to start a company that people want to pay you to do. As opposed to what's happening now, for the most part, which is people creating the most stupid ideas to have a startup just to make money, and they start with the idea, I'm going to make money. They're not going to make money if they have a stupid idea. You have to explore and find something worthwhile. Then, if other people are excited, then you have something that people might pay you for. So anyways, let me whip ahead here. There's all sorts of hackerspaces in the Bay Area. There's a bio one, there's one in Oakland, there's another bio one, and this is lagging behind. I've been traveling all over the world. Here's just a few pictures of me doing it, and you can see people are happy soldering everywhere. And it's not just soldering, it can be art, it can be craft, it can be science, it can be anywhere in the world. I was just in China, and I started a hacker in residence program where I got given a dorm room and a stipend and a transit pass and access to their tools, and I was mentoring people. It's incredibly fun, and there's a whole stream of people doing that not only there, but everywhere. I helped them start a hackerspace, and there's lots of cool hackerspaces in China now. Here's just a few of them, and this is going slowly. So, yeah, I was in Brazil before this, which is why I'm so incredibly jet lagged going from China to Brazil to here. Those are all the hackerspaces in the world. They're doing this in China, they're doing it in the US, they're doing it everywhere. Bureaucrats, wow, I'm not able to control my computer. And I'm a geek. So, yeah, well, it's got a mind of its own. This is what we do when we create technology that we rely on. So, but it is fun to play with these things, and in community we can do lots of cool things. Those are the kind of places, though, those empty places where bureaucrats are starting, which is really unfortunate, because we really need to create spaces with community in them and not these empty spaces for stupid startups to happen. So anyways, let me get to this one, the Trump Preparedness Workshop. Please come to Noisebridge on November 22nd. It's the Trump Preparedness Workshop. Let's see, will that work? Nope. It's gone forever. The Trump Preparedness Workshop is for digital privacy that we'll be meeting in the near future, and that's Tuesday, the 22nd at 8 o'clock. And you know, I think hackerspaces are just one way we can create community in our lives. And, oh, now it's cruising.
Is there a stop button?
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure what's happening, but there's some projects that I've taken pictures of at Hackerspaces, which are cool, but yeah, Hackerspaces really are an amazing way to have opportunities for more people. There's thousands of them in the world, but there's 7 billion people on our planet, and we really don't have a planet where a majority of people are living lives they feel are way worthwhile. And I would like to help change that ratio. So that's why I do what I do. And if anyone can find any ways to help, please let me know, because I would love to make that happen.
Want to say 2 words about the project with Cal? You work with Cal in some...
Yeah, so I work on lots of projects. I'm working with a friend Cal, who's a robot artist, and we're working on these 2 identical robot arms. Each one's controlled by a different person wearing a helmet that reads your brain waves. And the idea is so that both people can try to control their robot arm to make them kiss.
Questions?
I've got a silly one, actually. So, did any of those TV companies ever try to change the way that the LEDs turn them off? So that you can no
Well,
longer
you know, once a TV is out in the world, they can't change
It's
it.
possible, right? I think that's
But you know, the TV industry doesn't care because you know they sell 13 billion of them a year. So this doesn't stop them. I've only sold 500 million TV guns, but it's actually helped the TV industry because there are some people who do care. Like Gizmodo is this horrible website that has really negative little blurbs about about stuff going on in the tech world. And when TV Begun first came out, there was an article that started off with, Mitch Altman is an asshole. They're incredibly negative. So, but because of that article, I sold $24,000 worth of TV Begun in 12 hours. But they also came up with using my product to go to CES, Consumer Electronics Show, the biggest, huge consumer electronics show in the world, and they turned off lots of people's TVs, and they came up with a 2-minute video, and they, yeah, it was really mean, and I also sold about $20,000 worth of TV guns after that, which shows you something about our world, and because of that, the TV industry decided they would make security features on some high-end TVs.
So they have changed it because of that.
Well, they created high-end security TVs where you need to put in a code in order to turn the TV off.
Why did it take so long? What was wrong with your first idea, just running through one exit code after the...
Oh, that's exactly what I did, but there were a whole bunch of obstacles that slowed me down. For instance, they don't publish the codes. So I had to find the codes and record them, and back then, the tool to record them, Logic Analyzer, cost $30,000 in 2003. Now they're $150, but I made my own, and that took 3 months. And there were a whole bunch of other obstacles, so it took a year, but I did it.
Question here?
Yeah, so what are the biggest obstacles to the expansion of hackerspaces? I mean, my impression from Noise Bridge and word of mouth is that it's still mostly kind of who you'd expect. You're kind of highly male, a little bit better.
That's not true,
and younger. At least that was word of mouth a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so Noise Bridge is actually about 40% female and some small percent of transsexuals. And we've got genders of all kinds. Some hackerspaces are more female, some are 50-50. Yeah, it's definitely caught hold in the mainstream, and governments are supporting it, municipal governments, state governments, federal governments, national governments, because they help economy, they help education. Education sucks, and we have to have some way of moving things forward, and hackerspaces are one way that governments are looking to help with that. So, yeah, what is the biggest problem? Like in China, all the bureaucrats are making, I don't know if you saw flying by that empty-looking building without community. The problem is they're putting resources from the top down and putting them in the hands of people who are building those, trying to copy what they think are Silicon Valley buildings. It doesn't work that way. But if they can get it into the hands of people who can form community from the bottom up, then great. So finding people who can form community in places like China is the hard part.
So gregarious weirdos.
Gregarious weirdos.
And what's the obstacle to building? Is it the support from governments or?
Oh, wherever you can get it. So in China, it's mostly support from governments and also corporations and even venture capitalists hoping to get rich with the next Apple forming from those empty buildings, which isn't going to happen. But a lot of them in the community, thousands of them, just do it in their own way. They're almost all nonprofit. They all have their own unique business model to make it work, and they all work.
Okay, thank you very much.